He thought his son had opened the door to a safe home after losing his wife. Instead, his daughter-in-law gave him an impossible choice: hand over his life savings or leave forever. But she never wanted his money. She wanted to keep him away from a secret hidden behind a locked garage. Stay until the end, because the truth will change everything. My name is Max Velstrom, and if someone had told me a year ago that the greatest threat to my peaceful retirement would come from inside my own family, I would have laughed without hesitation. I spent 36 years as a structural engineer, a profession that rewarded patience, precision, and evidence. Every bridge I inspected, every report I signed, depended on facts instead of emotions. Even after retiring, I never abandoned that habit. I believed every problem had a logical explanation if you looked carefully enough. Looking back now, I realize I was only half right. Logic helped me uncover the truth, but it couldn't prepare me for the betrayal waiting inside the home where I believed I was welcome. After my wife, Eleanor, passed away following a long illness, life became painfully quiet. The silence inside my own house was heavier than I expected. Every room reminded me of routines we had shared for decades. 6 months later, my son convinced me that staying alone wasn't healthy. He insisted I move into the lakeside property where he lived with his wife, Celine Arkwright. They had more than enough space, he said. It would only be temporary while I recovered from knee surgery and decided what to do with my own home. His concern sounded genuine, and I accepted without much resistance. The lakeside house was impressive. It overlooked calm water surrounded by tall pine trees, with wide glass windows facing the shoreline. At sunrise, the reflections covered the surface of the lake in soft shades of gold. The property included a detached garage behind the main house, a guest cottage that had been empty for years, and a long gravel driveway lined with carefully maintained hedges. Everything looked peaceful. Nothing suggested the storm hiding beneath that polished appearance. During my first week, Celine behaved exactly as anyone would expect from a caring daughter-in-law. She prepared breakfast before everyone woke up, reminded me to take my medication after surgery, and often asked whether my knee was improving. She smiled whenever neighbors visited, introducing me proudly as part of the family. Everyone seemed to admire her kindness. I understood why. She played the role perfectly. Still, small details slowly caught my attention. Every evening, almost without fail, Celine disappeared for nearly an hour. She always claimed she needed to organize paperwork related to her family's logistics company. My son never questioned her schedule. Neither did I at first. Running a successful business required long hours. That explanation made perfect sense. About 2 weeks after I moved in, I began taking slow walks around the property as part of my physical therapy. My doctor encouraged gentle movement every afternoon, and the fresh air helped ease the stiffness in my knee. One afternoon, I wandered toward the detached garage simply because it offered the flattest walking path. Before I reached the building, Celine suddenly appeared from around the corner. "You shouldn't go near there," she said quickly. Her voice remained polite, but the speed of her response surprised me. I smiled. "Why not? There are old renovation supplies inside. Paint thinner, industrial cleaners, damaged electrical equipment. It's not safe." Her explanation sounded reasonable enough, so I apologized and turned around without giving it another thought. Yet something about her expression stayed with me. She wasn't worried that I might get hurt. She looked worried that I might see something. Over the following days, I noticed another unusual pattern. Expensive SUVs occasionally entered the property after sunset. They never stayed long. Their drivers avoided the front entrance and parked near the garage instead. Sometimes they remained inside for 15 or 20 minutes before leaving. No packages were unloaded. No equipment was carried inside. Whatever business took place there happened quietly and efficiently. I mentioned it casually during dinner. "Busy evening?" I asked. My son looked confused. "What do you mean?" "The visitors near the garage." Before he could answer, Celine interrupted. "Oh, those are consultants working with my father's company. They're reviewing archived records. It's boring accounting work." She answered too quickly. My son simply nodded and continued eating. I said nothing more. Several days passed before another strange incident forced me to pay closer attention. I had misplaced my favorite toolbox after repairing a loose cabinet hinge inside the guest bathroom. After checking the storage closet, basement shelves, and laundry room, I remembered leaving it outside during the afternoon. As I searched around the backyard, I noticed it sitting beside the detached garage window. I walked toward it. Before I could bend down, the garage door opened. Celine stepped outside so abruptly that she nearly startled me. She wasn't carrying documents. She wasn't holding cleaning supplies. She quickly pulled the garage door shut behind her before I caught even a brief glimpse inside. "I've been looking everywhere for you," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I picked up my toolbox. "I just came for this." Her shoulders relaxed almost immediately. For a brief second, I could have sworn I heard several computer fans humming behind the closed garage door. That made no sense. Why would an old storage garage need equipment running continuously? I didn't ask. Not yet. That evening, as rain began falling against the windows, I found myself replaying every unusual moment from the previous weeks. None of them proved anything by themselves. Each had an ordinary explanation. Yet together they formed a pattern that refused to leave my mind. I had spent an entire career recognizing patterns before buildings failed. Experience taught me that disasters rarely began with one obvious warning. They started with dozens of small signs that everyone else ignored. I had no idea that within 24 hours, Celine would sit across the dinner table, look directly into my eyes, and make a demand so shocking that it would destroy every illusion I still had about the family I thought I knew. The following evening began so normally that I almost convinced myself I had imagined the strange events surrounding the garage. My son arrived home shortly before 6 carrying takeout from a seafood restaurant in town. He greeted me with his usual smile, asked how my knee was feeling, and joked that I was recovering faster than his old football injuries. Celine prepared the dining table with careful precision, placing every plate and glass exactly where they belonged. If a stranger had walked through the front door, they would have seen an ordinary family sharing dinner after another busy day. Nothing hinted that before dessert, my entire future would change. We had barely finished eating when Celine folded her napkin and rested both hands on the table. Her expression became unusually serious. My son excused himself to answer a phone call that had come from his office, leaving the two of us alone. The silence stretched for several seconds before she finally spoke. "Max, we need to discuss your living arrangement." I nodded calmly. I assumed we'd talk about that eventually. She leaned forward. "No. We need to discuss it tonight." Her tone carried no warmth. The polite daughter-in-law I had known during the previous weeks seemed to disappear in an instant. "You've been staying here without contributing financially," she said. "Food, electricity, maintenance, medical transportation, it all costs money." I looked at her, surprised by the sudden change. "I've offered several times to help with household expenses." "You offered small amounts." She crossed her arms. "That's not enough." I remained silent, allowing her to continue. Then she said the sentence I will never forget. "You live here for free. Give me all your savings or get out." For several seconds, I honestly believed I had misunderstood her. My savings. Every dollar. I searched her face for any sign that she was joking. There wasn't one. I spoke carefully. "My retirement savings are meant to support me for the rest of my life." She shrugged. "You've already lived most of your life." Those words landed harder than I expected. Not because they insulted me. Because they revealed exactly what she thought my life was worth. I slowly pushed my chair back. "I won't be giving anyone my retirement account." Her expression remained perfectly calm. I expected that answer. The confidence in her voice unsettled me. She had prepared for this conversation. Nothing about it was spontaneous. At that moment my son returned from outside. The atmosphere immediately changed. Celine smiled, as though nothing unusual had happened. "We were just talking about Max's recovery," she said. My son looked between us. "You two okay?" I answered before she could. "I'm a little tired. I think I'll head upstairs." He accepted the explanation without hesitation. I spent most of that night unable to sleep. The more I replayed the conversation, the less sense it made. Celine already came from a wealthy family. Her father's logistics company owned multiple warehouses across the state. They drove expensive vehicles, hosted elaborate charity events, and regularly appeared in local business magazines. Someone living that lifestyle had no reason to demand an elderly man's retirement savings. Unless the money itself wasn't the real objective. The next morning, I quietly logged into my banking account from my laptop. Nothing had been withdrawn. No suspicious transactions appeared. My passwords still worked normally. I even contacted my financial advisor under the excuse of reviewing my retirement plan. He confirmed there had been no attempts to access my accounts. That should have reassured me. Instead, it raised even more questions. If Celine truly wanted my money, why hadn't she tried manipulating me more gradually? Why demand everything at once? Why make such an outrageous request that anyone would refuse? As I packed a small suitcase later that afternoon, I finally accepted that remaining in the house would only create more tension. Whether her demand came from greed or something else, I refused to stay where I was clearly unwanted. My son was away at work, so I left him a handwritten note explaining that I needed a few days alone to think. I intentionally avoided mentioning my conversation with Celine. I wanted to understand what was happening before involving him. While carrying my suitcase toward my car, dark clouds gathered overhead. A sudden gust of wind swept across the backyard, scattering leaves and loose debris from behind the detached garage. Something white slid across the grass and stopped against one of my shoes. At first I assumed it was an ordinary receipt. When I bent down to pick it up, I realized it was part of a torn accounting ledger. Curious, I looked around. Dozens of shredded pages had become trapped beneath the bushes after the storm. Most people would have ignored them. Old paperwork belonged in the trash. But years of reviewing engineering reports had taught me that damaged documents often revealed more than complete ones. I gathered every scrap I could find before the wind carried them away again. As I placed the torn papers inside my suitcase, I noticed something unusual. Several fragments displayed the logo of Arkwright Coastal Logistics. More importantly, every page had been destroyed by hand, not shredded by a machine. Someone had deliberately ripped them into uneven pieces. That wasn't how businesses disposed of ordinary records. I drove nearly 40 miles to a small motel outside town before examining the papers more closely. I spread every fragment across the bed, arranging them by paper color, print alignment, and page numbers exactly as I once reconstructed damaged engineering blueprints after flood inspections. Hours passed. Slowly, incomplete sentences began connecting. Invoice numbers matched. Account references repeated. Transfer amounts appeared unusually large. And one handwritten note in blue ink stopped me cold. Destroy originals before quarterly review. I stared at those 5 words for a long time. Suddenly, Celine's impossible demand sounded less like extortion, and far more like an attempt to force me out before I accidentally discovered something that was never supposed to leave that property. The motel room was silent except for the steady hum of the air conditioner and the occasional sound of passing traffic outside. I sat at the small wooden table with dozens of torn ledger fragments spread across its surface. Some pieces were no larger than a postage stamp. Others contained enough printed text to reveal account numbers, invoice references, and signatures. Reconstructing damaged documents wasn't part of my former profession, but engineering had taught me one valuable lesson. Every missing piece mattered, and every pattern eventually revealed itself if someone remained patient long enough. For nearly 6 hours, I worked without interruption. I matched paper fibers, aligned printed lines, and connected handwritten notes. By midnight, 3 complete pages had emerged from what had looked like worthless scraps. The documents listed shipments that supposedly traveled between warehouses owned by Arkwright Coastal Logistics. Yet the payment totals attached to those shipments were dramatically higher than the value of the cargo itself. Some invoices referred to containers that apparently never existed. Others carried identical tracking numbers assigned to completely different deliveries. Someone hadn't made bookkeeping mistakes. Someone had rewritten financial history. I photographed every reconstructed page with my phone before locking the originals inside my suitcase. My instincts told me those papers were more valuable than cash. If they disappeared, proving anything later would become much harder. The following morning, I drove to a quiet cafe several miles away from the motel. I deliberately avoided familiar places where someone connected to Celine's family might recognize me. I ordered black coffee, opened my laptop, and began searching public corporate records connected to Arkwright Coastal Logistics. Most information appeared perfectly ordinary. Annual reports showed steady profits. Community awards praised the company for charitable donations. Local newspapers described Roland Arkwright as one of the region's most respected business leaders. The public image looked flawless. That only made the reconstructed invoices even more disturbing. As I reviewed another financial report, my phone vibrated. An unfamiliar number. Normally, I ignored unknown callers. For reasons I still can't explain, I answered. Mr. Velstrom. The voice belonged to a man I had never met. Yes. My name is Gideon Mercer. We need to speak immediately. I remained cautious. How did you get my number? I've spent years watching the Arkwright family. When I heard you moved into their lakeside property, I paid attention. Yesterday someone informed me you suddenly checked into a motel. That tells me you probably saw something. Every warning bell in my mind began ringing. I don't know who you are. You shouldn't trust me, he replied calmly. Not yet. Meet me anyway. Bring nothing except your judgment. Against my better instincts, curiosity won. We agreed to meet that afternoon inside the reading room of an old public library on the opposite side of town. The library was nearly empty when I arrived. Sunlight filtered through tall windows, illuminating rows of aging bookshelves. A man in his late 50s stood near the history section holding a worn leather folder. He dressed plainly, with no expensive watch or tailored suit, yet his posture suggested years of professional discipline. You must be Max Velstrom. I am. He extended his hand. Gideon Mercer. His handshake was firm but measured. We sat at a quiet table near the back of the library. Without saying another word, Gideon opened the folder. Inside were photocopies of financial statements, legal correspondence, internal emails, and newspaper clippings dating back almost 8 years. I worked as the compliance officer for Arkwright Coastal Logistics, he explained. My responsibility was to verify financial integrity before external audits. What happened? I found discrepancies. He slid several papers toward me. The company reported shipments that never moved. Insurance claims appeared for damaged cargo that didn't exist. Money entered corporate accounts before quietly disappearing through consulting firms with no employees. I compared his documents with the reconstructed ledger pages inside my briefcase. The account numbers matched. So why weren't they prosecuted? Gideon smiled bitterly. Because evidence kept disappearing. He explained that every time investigators requested internal records, original databases had already been modified. Employees who questioned unusual transactions either resigned unexpectedly or withdrew their statements. Digital files vanished before independent auditors could examine them. I became the convenient scapegoat, Gideon continued. They accused me of poor oversight and terminated my employment. My professional reputation collapsed overnight. His voice carried frustration, but not self-pity. Instead, it carried determination. I've spent years waiting for one honest witness who accidentally walked into the wrong place. He looked directly at me. I believe you're that witness. I hesitated before removing the reconstructed ledger pages from my briefcase. His expression changed instantly. "Where did you get these?" "They blew across the backyard during a storm." He carefully examined each page. His face grew noticeably pale. "I've searched for these records for almost 4 years." "What makes them so important?" He tapped one invoice with his finger. "These are original transaction logs." "I don't understand." "The electronic versions can be altered." He pointed toward the handwritten approval signatures. "These cannot." For several moments neither of us spoke. The library seemed strangely quiet. Finally Gideon leaned closer. "Tell me everything you saw at the lakeside house." I described the late-night visitors, the locked garage, the constant humming behind the walls, and Celine's sudden demand for my retirement savings. When I finished, Gideon slowly nodded. "She never cared about your money." I frowned. "Then why demand it?" "Because she needed you gone before you became curious enough to ask questions. An outrageous argument gives everyone a simple explanation for your departure. If neighbors ask why you left, they'll assume it was a family disagreement." His words settled heavily in my mind. I left the library carrying far more than a folder of documents. I carried the realization that my stay at the lakeside house had never been as ordinary as I believed. Gideon Mercer wasn't asking me to chase rumors. He had spent years collecting fragments of a puzzle that nobody else seemed willing to assemble. The torn ledger pages I had recovered from the backyard were the missing pieces he had been searching for. If his conclusions were correct, then Celine's strange behavior, the late-night visitors, and the locked garage were all connected to a financial operation designed to survive by keeping inconvenient people in the dark. The question was no longer whether something illegal had happened. The question was how far the people responsible were willing to go to protect themselves. For the next 3 days Gideon and I met at different locations across town. Sometimes it was a quiet diner during breakfast hours. Sometimes it was a park where conversations blended with the noise of families and children. We avoided routines because Gideon believed predictable habits made people easier to follow. At first I thought he was being overly cautious. That assumption disappeared on the 4th morning. While leaving the diner, I noticed a black SUV parked across the street. It had been there when we arrived. It was still there when we left. The driver never stepped outside. As Gideon and I walked towards separate parking spaces, the SUV slowly pulled away. Neither of us spoke until we were inside my car. "You saw it too," Gideon finally said. I nodded. "You think they're watching us?" I stopped asking that question years ago. His answer was calm. Too calm. Like someone who had already accepted constant surveillance as part of daily life. That afternoon we reviewed another collection of corporate records. Gideon had obtained copies of archived insurance filings from several years earlier. According to the paperwork, expensive shipping containers had supposedly been destroyed during severe storms. Insurance companies had issued large settlements without realizing the containers listed in the claims had never existed in the company's actual inventory. They created assets on paper, Gideon explained, then reported those imaginary assets as losses. I leaned back in my chair and collected real money. Exactly. The operation was far more sophisticated than simple bookkeeping fraud. Every false shipment supported another false payment. Every altered invoice justified another insurance claim. Individual transactions looked harmless, but together they created a hidden pipeline that redirected millions of dollars without attracting immediate suspicion. Late that evening my phone rang. It was my son. His voice sounded tense. "Dad, where are you?" "I'm staying at a motel for a few days." "You left without explaining anything." "I needed some time." There was a brief silence. "Celine said you became angry over household expenses." I closed my eyes. Of course she had already created a believable story. "I'll explain everything soon," I replied carefully. "I promise." He sighed. "I just don't understand what's happening." Neither did I. After ending the call, guilt settled heavily on my shoulders. My son had no idea he was standing between two completely different versions of reality. One came from the woman he loved. The other came from evidence scattered across my motel room. The following afternoon, I returned alone to the lakeside neighborhood. I had no intention of entering the property. I simply wanted to observe from a distance. Parking several streets away, I walked along a public trail overlooking the rear section of the estate. Through gaps in the trees, I could see the detached garage. Nothing appeared unusual. Until shortly after sunset, a delivery van approached without company markings. Instead of stopping near the main entrance, it drove directly beside the garage. 3 men unloaded several large black equipment cases. Not cardboard boxes. Not furniture. Heavy electronic equipment. The garage door opened only long enough for the cases to disappear inside before closing again. The entire exchange lasted less than 5 minutes. I photographed everything with my phone. As I lowered the camera, someone spoke behind me. "You shouldn't be here." The voice froze me instantly. I turned around. My son stood only a few feet away. His expression wasn't angry. It was disappointed. "What are you doing, Dad?" I searched for the right words. Before I could answer, he continued, "I've been trying to understand why you suddenly left." He looked toward the property. "Now I find you hiding in the trees taking pictures of my home." His accusation hurt more than I expected. "I'm not spying on you." "Then explain." I hesitated. Not because I wanted to lie. Because I still didn't know how much he could safely hear. "I've discovered something about Celine's family." His face immediately hardened. "This is about her. It's bigger than her." He folded his arms. "I don't believe that." For several long seconds neither of us spoke. Then something unexpected happened. He reached into his jacket pocket and removed a folded envelope. "I wasn't going to show you this," he admitted quietly. Inside were printed copies of employee pension reports. Several pages carried handwritten calculations. The numbers didn't match. "I found these 2 months ago," he said. "I thought someone in payroll had made mistakes." "You investigated?" He nodded. The deeper I looked, the more records disappeared. I stared at him in disbelief. "You knew something was wrong." I knew something didn't make sense. He looked directly into my eyes. But I never imagined it involved my own wife. The distance between us suddenly felt much smaller. For the first time since I left the house, we weren't standing on opposite sides. We were asking the same questions. Neither of us noticed the black SUV parked at the end of the road. Only when its engine started and slowly pulled away did we realize someone had been watching our entire conversation. Whoever sat behind that tinted windshield now knew one dangerous truth. Father and son were no longer divided. And together, we had become a far greater threat than either of us could have imagined. Watching the black SUV disappear around the corner confirmed what Gideon had suspected from the very beginning. We were no longer collecting evidence in secret. Whoever controlled the operation now understood that my son and I were working together. That changed everything. We couldn't afford another mistake, another delay, or another emotional decision. If the people behind the fraud believed we possessed evidence capable of exposing them, they would almost certainly begin destroying whatever remained. Time had become our greatest enemy. My son stood beside me in complete silence for nearly a minute before speaking again. "Dad, tell me everything." There was no reason to hide anything anymore. We drove to the motel where Gideon was waiting. I introduced the two of them, and although my son looked skeptical at first, that hesitation disappeared once Gideon opened his collection of documents across the small table inside the room. Invoice copies, insurance claims, corporate emails, internal audit reports. Then I placed the reconstructed ledger pages beside them. My son slowly compared the signatures and account numbers. His face lost all color. I've seen these transaction codes before. He reached into his briefcase and removed several printed pension reports from the company payroll department. The missing retirement contributions were transferred through these same accounting references. Gideon immediately leaned forward. They connected employee pension funds to the fake shipping invoices. My son nodded. I never understood how the money vanished without affecting the company's balance sheets. Gideon carefully connected several documents side by side. They hid the losses inside fabricated insurance reimbursements. Everything suddenly fit together with terrifying precision. The fake cargo created insurance payments. Those payments disguised missing pension funds. Altered databases erased the original transactions. The detached garage wasn't simply storing records. It housed the servers that constantly rewrote financial history before every audit. They're not just stealing from investors, my son whispered. They're stealing from their own employees. No one spoke for several seconds. Finally, Gideon broke the silence. We have enough evidence to prove financial manipulation. I looked toward him, but only if the original server records still exist. My son immediately understood. The garage. Gideon nodded. They'll erase everything the moment they realize we're getting close. For the next hour we discussed every possible option. Breaking into the property would destroy the credibility of any evidence we found. Secretly copying computer files would expose us to criminal charges ourselves. We needed a lawful solution that prevented the records from being destroyed before investigators could secure them. Then Gideon smiled for the first time since I had met him. They're planning their own mistake. He reached into his folder and removed an email printed months earlier. According to the correspondence, Roland Arkwright had scheduled a complete overnight migration of the company's financial database to a new encrypted server system. The migration had already been delayed twice because of technical problems. When is the new transfer? I asked. Gideon checked another document. Tomorrow night. My son immediately understood the opportunity. If investigators know the migration is happening, they'll request emergency authorization before the data moves, Gideon finished. Early the next morning we anonymously delivered copies of the reconstructed ledgers, pension reports, insurance claims, and internal correspondence to federal financial investigators. We deliberately avoided dramatic accusations. Instead, we simply explained that original accounting records were in immediate danger of being overwritten during a scheduled system migration inside a private structure located on the Arkwright property. The waiting was unbearable. Every hour felt longer than the last. Late the following evening, Gideon received a short encrypted message from one of his former professional contacts. They're moving. Without wasting another second, the three of us drove toward the lakeside neighborhood. We remained well outside the property, parking near a public overlook where the detached garage was partially visible through the trees. Lights glowed inside the building. Several vehicles surrounded the entrance. Technicians carried laptops and portable storage devices through the open doorway. Roland Arkwright himself stood outside speaking rapidly into a phone. Then everything changed. A convoy of government vehicles entered the property. Unmarked SUVs stopped beside the garage. Several investigators stepped out displaying official identification before anyone had time to react. Roland's confident expression disappeared instantly. Technicians froze in place. No one attempted to drive away. Investigators entered the garage while digital forensic specialists immediately disconnected the servers from the network before the migration could begin. Every hard drive, every backup unit, every storage device, everything was secured before a single file could be deleted. From our distant viewpoint we couldn't hear the conversations, but we didn't need to. The operation had failed. Hours later, news helicopters circled above the estate. Television crews gathered outside the entrance. By sunrise the following morning, local news stations confirmed that authorities had executed multiple financial search warrants involving Arkwright Coastal Logistics. That afternoon my phone rang. The caller identified herself as one of the lead investigators. "Mr. Velstrom," she said, "your reconstructed documents matched the original server records almost perfectly." I closed my eyes with relief. "So the files survived?" "Yes." She paused briefly. "And someone has begun cooperating." I already knew who she meant before she spoke the next sentence. Celine Arkwright has admitted she knew accounting records were altered over several years. The words struck me harder than I expected. Not because I wanted revenge. Because despite everything she had done, hearing the truth spoken aloud made the betrayal feel painfully real. But the investigation wasn't finished. Authorities had secured the evidence. Now they intended to follow every missing dollar. And once they did, the Real architect behind the entire operation would have nowhere left to hide. The investigation expanded faster than anyone expected. Within 48 hours of the raid, financial investigators had secured every server recovered from the detached garage, along with dozens of encrypted storage devices and hundreds of boxes filled with contracts, invoices, insurance claims, payroll records, and handwritten notes. News outlets across the state reported that Arkwright Coastal Logistics had suspended all operations pending the outcome of a federal investigation. Employees arrived at company offices only to discover locked doors, temporary notices from court-appointed administrators, and television crews waiting outside. For years, the company had projected an image of stability, generosity, and unquestionable success. That image collapsed almost overnight. I spent the next several days answering questions from investigators. They asked me to describe everything from the moment I moved into the lakeside house until the afternoon I discovered the torn ledger pages beneath the garage window. They wanted every detail, no matter how small. The late-night vehicles. The humming sound inside the garage. Celine's unusual behavior whenever I walked near the building. Even the exact words she used during our confrontation at the dinner table. "You live here for free. Give me your savings or get out." The lead investigator wrote the sentence down without interrupting me. When I finished, she quietly closed her notebook. "Mr. Velstrom," she said, "that demand may have had nothing to do with your retirement account." "I've realized that." She nodded. "We believe she needed a believable reason for your departure before someone else inside the organization noticed your curiosity." Everything Gideon had suspected from the beginning was finally being confirmed by evidence instead of theory. A week later my son called and asked if we could meet at the small lakeside park where I used to walk after my surgery. The property across the water looked strangely different now. The once busy driveway remained empty. Temporary security fencing surrounded the garage. Government vehicles had replaced luxury cars. My son looked exhausted. "I filed for divorce yesterday," he said quietly. I wasn't surprised. "I'm sorry." He shook his head. I kept hoping there would be another explanation. There wasn't. He stared across the lake for several moments before speaking again. "She admitted everything to investigators." I listened without saying a word. "She said she never wanted your savings. She believed forcing you to leave would protect her father's operation. She thought if you stayed, eventually you'd ask the wrong questions." I sighed slowly. "So she chose loyalty over honesty." "Yes." He lowered his head. "And I chose trust without asking enough questions. Neither of us blamed the other. The damage had already been done." Weeks turned into months as the investigation continued. Court records revealed the true scale of the fraud. Roland Arkwright had orchestrated an elaborate financial scheme lasting nearly 8 years. Fake shipping invoices, fabricated insurance claims, manipulated payroll records, and altered digital databases had redirected millions of dollars through shell companies that existed only on paper. Employee pension contributions had quietly disappeared into those transactions, leaving hard-working families unknowingly funding a criminal enterprise they trusted with their futures. Because the original server data had been secured before the scheduled migration, forensic accountants reconstructed nearly every transaction. The digital evidence matched the torn ledger pages I had rescued from the backyard almost perfectly. Investigators later told me those damaged papers became one of the key links proving the electronic records had been intentionally altered after the original documents were created. Roland Arkwright was arrested and eventually faced multiple criminal charges involving financial fraud, conspiracy, insurance fraud, and obstruction of justice. Several senior executives accepted plea agreements in exchange for testimony. Court-appointed administrators liquidated company assets to compensate investors and restore employee retirement funds wherever possible. Celine accepted responsibility for concealing evidence and knowingly assisting efforts to mislead auditors. During one hearing, she briefly looked toward the public gallery where I was sitting. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She simply lowered her eyes. Some stories don't end with dramatic speeches. Sometimes silence says everything. Gideon Mercer finally received something that had been taken from him years earlier: his professional reputation. Independent investigators officially cleared him of every allegation connected to the accounting scandal. Several organizations even invited him to lecture about corporate compliance and ethical oversight. Watching him rebuild the career that had been stolen from him reminded me that justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about restoring what dishonesty destroyed. As for me, I sold my old house and purchased a modest home overlooking another small lake several counties away. It wasn't large, and it certainly wasn't luxurious, but every corner belonged to peace instead of suspicion. I spent my mornings volunteering with engineering students, teaching them that technical knowledge alone is never enough. Character matters just as much as skill. A bridge can fail because someone ignores a crack. A company can collapse because someone ignores a lie. The principle is exactly the same. Occasionally people ask whether I regret moving into my son's home. My answer always surprises them. No. If I had never accepted his invitation, none of the hidden crimes would have surfaced when they did. Thousands of employees might have lost even more of their retirement savings. More innocent families could have paid the price for someone else's greed. Life has a strange way of revealing truth when least expected. Celine once believed demanding my savings would protect her family's future.